Greetings! In this video we will complete the head and neck for our character. We'll begin with a polysphere. I'm just going to slide this up and we'll hit the F key to get in there. We'll open the inputs in the channel box and my subdivision axis are 12 and my subdivision height is 6. We'll jump into the front view. I'll hit the F key again and we'll delete the faces on one half, and then we're going to delete the faces on the bottom half of the existing side. And that gives us the top half of our head. We'll come into the side view in object mode and we'll scale this up. And we can squash that down a little bit and we'll place it somewhere about there. Now we're going to extrude the rear 3 edges. And if you look in the perspective view, those are the edges that we want to select. We'll come into the modeling toolkit, we'll hit extrude, and be sure that we're extruding downward in world space. So we'll click the world space dial, and we'll jump into the side view, and I'm just going to pull that down to the base of the skull at about the corner of the mouth. Well, now we're going to taper this inward, and so we're going to hide our face. If your face isn't already on a layer, you can place it on a layer so that we can quickly hide that away. And we're going to taper this in so that it's following the contour. So the widest part of the head or the skull is about here, and then it narrows as it comes down to the top of the neck. And so that's what we were producing there, is that we'll come into the modeling toolkit, use the multi-cut, and I'm just going to add an extra edge about there and there. This will allow us to create the back of the head. So we'll pull these backwards, and we've got that. According to our reference, we can cheat some of these kind of forward and around. That's about where we're going to meet the existing face. We'll build some new geometry. Before we combine, let's solve the top of the head. We could just delete every other edge, and that would leave us with quads, but it also leaves us with a vertex on that center line. So we don't, right, even if we've got quads here, we've got a vertex. And if you note, if we look at our face, we don't have any vertexes across that center line. So let's just delete them all. We'll come back to the modeling toolkit and we'll use our multi-cut. I'll just cut straight across, and we left that vertex there for this reason. We'll hit return, click drag, I'll hold down the shift key, click, return, drag, shift key, click return, and now we've got a nice quads across the top, and we eliminated that vertex. I'm going to pull that down just a hair. And so there is our kind of skull cap, if you will. Let's take a look here in this view, and I pulled those back but didn't accommodate it here. Always a good idea to look in multiple views as you're working. All right, now we're ready. We'll grab our 2 meshes, our 2 existing meshes, and we'll hit combine. And then our first is going to be a weld. We're going to use a combination of bridging and welding. Using the target weld, merge to target option is selected, and we'll click drag and click drag. So that is our first attachment. I can see here this is a little bit wide. I'm going to pull these in just a little bit. Something like that. Now we'll come to the front and we'll pull this vertex up if yours wasn't already in a similar position. We'll grab these 2 edges and bridge. And note we've got all the detail here on the face, and it's coming up to our efficient topology of the skull. We could use an extra edge here, though, as these brows are raising. It's kind of coming into a square. So if we were going to use the multi-cut, right, it would drive that edge all the way around, and that would be inefficient because we don't need the edge back here. But we could use a little bit more edge flow around the face, right, to meet the jaw here. So let's skip this attachment. We're going to attach from here to here. That gives us a try, but we want that in this case because I want to drive the edge downward. So we'll come and I'll hold the shift key, shift key, shift key. I'm not holding the option key. We're not putting in a loop. And then I'll click drag and pull that down. We'll hit return. Now we can delete this try and we'll bridge these two. And so now we've got some extra geometry up here where we want it, so that when we raise the brow, there's a little bit of a boundary between the rest of the head. And then we're driving that edge flow around and we'll have it, yeah, it'll meet the jaw here nicely. Let's grab these three edges and we'll extrude those out, and we'll just pull these in world space, pull those straight out, and maybe taper it right to this geometry. We'll use our target weld, we'll weld that up there, and then we've got a bridge opportunity here. So we'll bridge that. That looks good. We'll bridge these and these, and then this allows us to bridge up, and we've got nice topology running around with that loop down to the jaw. All right, good place to increment and save if you haven't been, and we'll move on to the neck. We'll start with a cylinder. I'll raise that up, we'll hit the F key, and we want 8 subdivision axis, and I want to delete the top and bottom. Rather than make that selection manually, let's select the faces we want, and then with the shift bounding box selection, we invert, and then we can hit delete. I'll do that again. We'll grab the faces we want, shift bounding box selection, which inverts the selection, we'll hit delete, and we've got a cylinder without the top and bottom. We'll come and grab these faces on the side. We're going to drive this straight down. Make sure you don't pull it off the center line. We're constrained on the Y. And we'll bring it over here and we'll scale it up to about the width, and then it's going to be very narrow in that direction. We'll rotate it up about 30 degrees. I'll hold the J key, 15, 15, so that's about, or that is 30. About 30 is what we want. And we'll come into the perspective view, just take a look at that. We'll grab both of these and we'll come and hit combine, and now we can begin to finish off the jaw and neck. We'll grab this edge and this edge, hit the 4 key so you can see what we've got there, and we'll hit bridge, and then we want divisions 3, so we'll come up to our shortcut menu here and we'll just scrub the divisions to 3. That allows us, oops, I accidentally scrubbed back to 2. There we go. I'll click off of that. We'll grab these 3 edges and these 3 edges. We're skipping this, and we'll hit bridge. And then we'll use the multi-cut, Control Shift, and that allows us to quad this out. We'll double click the edge and we'll come to Mesh, Fill Hole, and let's contour these vertexes a little bit. We'll pull that up and pull that around. Yeah, that's about what we want. We'll come finish here. We'll bridge these two, and we want this coming up. So we'll say this to this, and then that leaves us with those there. So we've got a nice loop running up to where our ear will be. Yeah, so that is the topology. The shape is a little funny. This needs to be narrowed. So yeah, this is where we could maybe start to play with the sculpt. I'm going to come up to Mesh. Let's actually delete all of our history first. Let's come to Edit, Delete All by Type History, and then we'll come to Mesh, Mirror, and the Merge Threshold, we'll put that down to 0.1. And right, this is a little fat in here. We could have modeled it just by pushing the vertexes, but let's come to Sculpt. I'll double click it and we can turn on our symmetry there. And I just wanted to narrow it. Just as a reminder, we've got the Sculpt tool. By default, it pulls, Option key, Control key pushes, and then the Shift key smooths. The M key up and down controls the strength. So I just wanted to narrow, so I'm going to hold the Control key. Our cheeks may be a little pronounced. It's kind of fun though. We could pull out, push in the temple. You wanted to sculpt a little bit on the skull. Our neck is a little narrow, so there's still some things that we can work on. We can come back to the references, and this skull looks a little tall, so we'll hold down the B key and maybe increase that and pull that down, and maybe narrow it a little bit. There we go. That's a little bit more natural. We can look in the side view, and we'll scale out this direction. And of course, this character is just based on a pretty rough drawing. So we'll go with what is looking natural. So something like that. Here's the base of the skull. If we wanted to accentuate that, pull that down. And our neck is a little narrow here. We could pull those out. Doesn't look like it's following exactly, right? So we could maybe contour that up. Our nose and the front. Yeah. So our topology is good so far. In the next set of videos, we'll come back. We'll complete the eye cavity and the mouth cavity, and then we'll get to work on the ear, and then we can move on to UV mapping. All right, questions in the discussion forum. Have a good one.